And welcome to the Outsiders Podcast on a Friday evening. We're previewing Chiefs and Bucs today.
Oh no, the state of Florida.
Oh my goodness, that's true. Just a porous record in the state of Florida for the Kansas City Chiefs historically. Of course, in 2005, we went out there and won with Priest Holmes in a hurricane.
Well, if Priest Holmes and Trent Green are out there this Sunday, I feel really good about our chances of winning.
Well, not so fast. Priest Holmes and Trent Green will not be there. However, Brady Quinn, the Brady Quinn era, will be starting out in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium this Sunday against a team that I think it's really hard to peg right now. Greg Schiano coming in there. Not sure really. I know I think he's a good coach. I think he knows what he wants to get out of this team. Tampa maybe right now doesn't have much of an identity because they can't run the ball. But their defense is young and kind of stepping up, I think.
I like this team more than most people do. I have Sunday NFL tickets, so I've watched a few of their games here and there, and I like their defense. It's stingy. It's really young. They're really explosive and fast, except for Rondé Barber, the man who will just never get old, never retire. Yeah. Their offense, we've had problems with Vincent Jackson in the past. They've got Dallas Clark, who could cause Eric Berry some problems. He's a wily veteran. The running game, like you said, hasn't got off to the greatest start as they thought they would get with Doug Martin and LeGarrette Blount. And their other receivers, Mike Williams and Aurelius Ben, can cause us some problems as well.
Well, and that's going to be interesting because, again, with Brady Quinn starting this game, it's such a toss-up because Cassel, of course, gets hurt last week. We're going to bring Neal Jones in from KCTV5 to talk about the Matt Cassel situation, Eric Winston, and kind of help preview the game for us as well. But, you know, Kansas City is 1-4. Not out of this thing just yet, but at 1-4, it's very dicey. I mean, this team, you're on the verge of the season being lost at this point. We've talked about it all through the first few games too.
Well, it doesn't help that Denver and San Diego play each other, so unfortunately, one of them is going to get the W, and that kind of hurts the Chiefs a little bit. As far as us being 1-4, the Brady Quinn era starting. Brady has got to take hold of this. This is his real last opportunity at his starting job. I mean, if he comes out and plays like Tom Brady, I mean, maybe we go with him throughout next season and beyond. But if he comes out, wins 2 or 3 games, looks awful, looks inconsistent like he has in the past at his stops in Denver and Cleveland, then we're looking at hopefully drafting a quarterback or trading for somebody and moving on with a new regime.
Yeah, this is kind of a scary game for me because I'm at the point at 1-4. We've already been blown out by the Bills. Still have not led for one moment of time except for the made field goal in overtime against the Saints to win it miraculously. It's to the point for me where I'm starting to break down. I'm starting to think about this organization and what needs to be replaced. And that goes for Scott Pioli, Brian Daboll, Romeo Crennel, the whole staff, our quarterback situation. So I don't know how in the long run helpful it would be for Brady Quinn to come in and play well and string together 5-6 wins. I don't know if I even am cheering for that at this point because this is not a division champion team. It's just not. It's not a playoff team. That's probably all but out of the question. So I don't know. Do you think Brady can come in and be the quarterback coming into the future, or are you kind of like me thinking, wow, we really just need to redo all this?
Well, if Brady can come in and win like 10 or 11 games, which 11 would be all that he could win throughout the rest of the season, then I think we could go forward with him if he looks great, like Tom Brady, like I said earlier. If he can show us that he can be a franchise quarterback, that we can lean on him and the quarterback can actually help us win games instead of managing the rest of the team and relying on a number one rush offense. We need Brady to step up and show that he can be a franchise guy. If he wins 3-4 games, and this team thinks that's good enough, and we're going to roll with him like another Cassel, Gerbach, Bono, Craig kind of guy, then we're in for some really troubled years like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I think we're going to bring Neal Jones on here in a little bit. Kind of asking the same thing because this has been a team where I'm interesting to see his take on what happened with Cassel last week, and we know he was there. They've been covering this on KCTV5 all week. And another key facet coming into this game, we haven't seen Kendrick Lewis all year. Of course, he got hurt. He hurt his shoulder, re-injured it in a preseason game, and we're going to see him back out there. We're going to have our 2 starting safeties. Maybe that helps? Maybe that helps Eric Berry back out there.
Well, Kendrick Lewis is the one that calls the plays in the secondary usually, so maybe that could take a load off of Eric Berry. He can relax. He can just fly around out there like an Ed Reed or Troy Polamalu and just play his game and not have to worry about making all the calls, the adjustments, getting everybody lined up correctly in the secondary. So I'm hoping that this can be a starting point for Eric to have a Pro Bowl year throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, he struggled early on, but it's been you said Abram Elam's been back there, not really played all that well. The secondary Really, I think has stepped up though in these last couple games. I mean, obviously they held Baltimore. They were able to keep the Saints and Drew Brees at bay. So we're going to see how that turns out.
Well, with Flowers coming back, he's playing well. I think Rout's getting more comfortable by the game. And if we can have both our starting safeties out there instead of throwing Elam out there, who's had a very rough start, looked like he'd be something in preseason, but he hasn't started off well. And then Travis Daniels is more of a cornerback, and they threw him at safety, and he's kind of looks a little lost.
Well, I got to ask you about Josh Freeman, because here's a guy that had struggled his first year in the league, but came out in 2010, had a really good season, led his team to 10 wins, and he looked like a big, strong quarterback that was going to be able to just throw the ball over the yard. What happened?
I don't know. Last year, it was very inconsistent from him. The offensive line has some issues on the outside. They're more of a power running team up the middle with their offensive line. They signed Carl Nix in the offseason. He has some nice weapons. I just think he needs some more time to throw, and he needs to rely on the running game. The running game needs to get going for him, because right now it's all on the passing game, and he's not living up to the billing, having it all on him.
And we're back with KCTV5's Neal Jones. Neal, welcome to the show, the Outsiders Podcast. How you doing today, and how are you feeling about this weekend? Big Chiefs at Bucs. Brady Quinn coming in. How do you feel about it?
Well, based on the little that we've seen of him in the regular season, just those 3 passes, I thought he looked pretty good. Nobody's ever questioned Brady Quinn's physical ability. There's a reason why he started at Notre Dame for decent Notre Dame teams. And there's a reason why he was taken as a first-round draft pick by Cleveland. He's a big, strong guy. He's got a big arm. He looks like a pro quarterback. The problem with Brady has been that he's been inconsistent on his accuracy. He's not a guy that he misses a lot of open receivers, and certainly we've seen that happen here in Kansas City over the years with Matt Cassel and with some other guys. And you can see how an inability to be consistent at the quarterback position can kill an entire offense and ultimately an entire team and eventually an entire franchise. That's what happened to Brady Quinn up in Cleveland. He was inconsistent in his ability to throw the football accurately, and it ultimately got him.
Regardless of how Brady Quinn plays this week, do you think that we have signaled the end of the Matt Cassel era here in Kansas City?
I don't know about that. Just when you think a guy's done and he can't play anymore, then he comes back in, the team plays a little better around him or something. So I don't know. They've got so much money invested in him. I don't think there's any question that the fans have given up on him, but I don't know that his teammates have necessarily given up on him. Matt Cassel is not Steve Bono. Matt Cassel is not Elvis Grbac. Those are 2 guys that the offensive players did not believe in. They just felt like this guy can't make plays. Well, Matt Cassel's had a good season here. Matt Cassel had a very nice year 2 years ago when they made the playoffs, and largely his receiving core, a lot of the players he plays with, were here then. And they remember that Matt Cassel threw the football pretty well that year and got some things done. And so I don't know that we can say that his time is done in Kansas City. I think the fans would like to see that happen, but I don't think that necessarily means that it's going to happen.
Can the Chiefs afford to bring Matt Cassel back next year and not draft a quarterback or go out and get another established quarterback?
Well, I think there's no question that they've got to pursue another quarterback, whether it's through free agency or through the waiver wire, getting guys that have been released by the teams, or if it's by a trade, or if, most likely it's going to be through it's going to be trying to bring in someone who can compete. If they don't think it's Brady Quinn, they're going to bring in somebody who's a free agent, and then they're going to have to draft somebody they believe who can be a quarterback in the future. I don't think there's any question that we're at that spot now.
Neal, we would be certainly remiss if we didn't ask you your thoughts on this past week against Baltimore. Of course, Matt Cassel goes down with the concussion. Eric Winston's comments, you guys have been covering it all week. What were your thoughts personally, and do you think Eric Winston maybe made a mistake by calling out the Chiefs fans?
Well, first of all, let me tell you where I was. I was up in the press box, which, for the fans who aren't aware, that's sealed. It's not open. You can't open the windows. So what you hear, particularly when you're so high up, you don't really hear a true representation of what the players hear. When the fans boo, you don't hear it as loud. When they cheer, you don't hear it as loud. You don't hear individual comments. When I've shot over the years, I've shot most of the Chiefs games over the last 15 years. And when you're on the sideline, you get a much stronger sense of the crowd reaction. And I went and listened to our photographer, Bill Lindsay, who shot the game. I went and listened to his camera, his shot, and listened to his tape so that I could hear what the reaction was. And he was on the sideline, and there's no question that there were some people who cheered. How many people, I have no idea. But it was not a majority. The majority of fans did not cheer. How many of those people were cheering because Matt Cassel was hurt? How many of them were cheering because, okay, Brady Quinn's up? And remember, Brady Quinn came out and began to warm up on the field while Matt Cassel was still laying down. And so how many people were cheering, hey, Brady's up, we're going to get Brady, and without really thinking that, hey, Matt Cassel might be hurt badly. At the time, the injury, it didn't look that bad. He got sandwiched, he kind of bounced, but it wasn't one of those situations where the quarterback was out in the open and got clobbered like we saw Trent Green. Remember we saw Trent Green get hit?
Oh, yeah.
In the Bengals when he was rolling out and then he slid and the guy just blew him up. That was obvious.
Yeah, Robert Gathers.
Serious injury. This wasn't so obvious. But Eric Winston, I love it when players or coaches tell us what they think. I love it when they're not politically correct. I love it when they speak from their gut and their heart as opposed to, what was I told to say? So I have no problem with Eric Winston's comments. I don't necessarily agree with them. They were said, in the emotion of a locker room, but I would much rather he say what he really believes as opposed to, giving us a stock answer. I mean, how many times have we been out at Arrowhead Stadium the last 3 or 4 years and heard nothing but just stock answers that you feel like are scripted, as opposed to someone who spoke their mind, someone who spoke with emotion. So I have no problem with him speaking his mind. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I certainly think he has a right to express his opinion.
Don't you think there has to be some middle ground in between speaking your mind and being a robot and just saying things, but with Winston just throwing the entire fan base under the bus?
Oh, he said some things I thought were stupid. I mean, but you know what? I live in Kansas City, and I've been here since 1992, and I grew up watching down in Oklahoma City. I grew up watching the Chiefs on television, so I've been a Chiefs fan for a long, long time. So I bring that focus and that attitude and that position to the table. Eric Winston brings a completely different position. He's played 5 games for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he has not seen, maybe the first half of the first game, he saw how we can be in Kansas City when they were playing the Falcons, the season opener, and it was a really good game. And in the second half, I thought the crowd really stayed in it and tried to lift up the Chiefs as much as they could. But he doesn't know what we're like. He doesn't really know this community. He brought an attitude. He's a pro football player, and he was sticking up for his guy. And I can appreciate that. And I think guys should stick up for their teammates. And if they think that we're giving Matt Cassel an unfair shake, then they need to say that. Much better than just saying, well, we've got to play hard, and we've got to just keep sawing wood, and we've got... No, I want to hear what guys really think. We stick our microphones in their face. I think it's good when they speak what they think the truth is. Now, I don't agree with what he said. Like I said, I'm from here. I know how the fans are. These fans are good fans.
Sure.
We're not all perfect, but I think by and large, I've been in almost every NFL. I've been in every NFL city, and I've been in almost every NFL stadium. And I think our fans are as good, if not better, than 99% of the fans are. Listen, I've been in Green Bay. I was there when they blew a lead against the Chiefs in 2003. There were boos. They booed the Packers. They were mad. They turned it over and blew a big fourth-quarter lead, and the Chiefs beat them. They weren't happy. They booed the defense on the last play of the game, and Green Bay's fans are as good as they are in the league. When fans are passionate, like the Chiefs fans are passionate, you're going to get passionate reactions. Usually that means good things. They're going to cheer for you. They're going to boo the other team. They're going to boo the officials. They're going to wear red. They're going to show up and fill Arrowhead Stadium. They're going to make this one of the toughest places to play. But that passion is a double-edged sword. And when you do not play well, then that passion can be turned against you. And that's what's happened the last couple of years with the team. The fans are tired of the way this team has played. They're tired of no playoff games. I mean, Chiefs football is a big part of this community, just like Royals baseball used to be a big part of our persona in Kansas City. And when you're passionate and the fans care, that there's going to be a backlash when you don't play well, and the players have to understand that.
Do you think some of this is on Scott Pioli, who keeps just putting Matt Cassel back out there each and every week over 4 years, and the fans feel like injury's the only way they can get him out of here and get a franchise quarterback in?
I think that Scott Pioli, he heads that organization. I have to believe that he is much, much more hands-on than Carl Peterson was. I thought Carl Peterson's biggest failures were largely giving his head coaches too much power and too much say in what they did. Not stepping in and saying, look, this is the way it's got to be. I think that Scott Pioli, from what I understand, is on the opposite spectrum. I understand he gives his coaches much less freedom and is much more hands-on and much more involved in the day-to-day decisions. Generally speaking, I think a head coach's responsibility is to pick the quarterback and pick his starters. But in Kansas City, you do get the feeling that maybe the general manager might have more say-so than in other cities. I don't know that for a fact. I'm not in the meeting rooms. I don't know what goes on. But it sure seems like Scott Pioli has made the decision that this is our quarterback and we're sticking with him thick or thin.
All right, Neal, before we let you go, we got to fast forward to this Sunday. Chiefs at Tampa Bay. Of course, traditionally, the Kansas City Chiefs as a franchise have not played well in the state of Florida or Tampa Bay either. So Brady Quinn comes in. This is kind of a toss-up game to me. Tell us your thoughts, because Tampa Bay, with Josh Freeman, still the young quarterback there, but kind of a questionable offense and a young defense.
Well, you've got a new head coach down there, a new coaching staff. They are trying to turn things around. They are trying to inject. He's trying to change the mentality of that franchise. Greg Schiano, very good football coach from Rutgers, did a great job there. I know that if you talk to pro football coaches and personnel people, at least the ones I've talked to, they really think he ran a really nice program at Rutgers, and that the players he turned out were fundamentally sound and played really hard-nosed football. That's what he wants down there, and he's trying to get them to play that. I think they're a talented team. I think they have largely underachieved. Remember 2 years ago, the same year the Chiefs made the playoffs with 10 wins, this Tampa Bay team had 10 wins and played pretty opportunistic football. And then last year, they just fell off the mat. They were not good. I think that they are capable of beating the Chiefs, but you know what? I have a feeling, I felt this way going into the Baltimore game. I really felt like the Chiefs had played about as badly as they could play. They had turned it over 15 times. They only had 3 turnovers. They were minus 12. These were historically bad starts in the NFL. Not for this year, for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And I just felt like mathematically the odds told you that the Chiefs were not going to play that badly again. Now, they turned it over a bunch of times. I was proven wrong there. But I think the Chiefs their defense especially seems like it's ready to play better football. I think this is going to be another tight game like it was last week. It might be a little higher scoring. And I think, when I was up in the press box, everybody was making fun of and complaining about the Chiefs' game plan last week. That game plan kept them in the game against a pretty good football team. And the Chiefs are one of the better running football teams in the league. And Jamal Charles is one of the top weapons in the league. And so I think I really do think the Chiefs have a great opportunity to win this football game. I don't know what the spread is, but I think this is going to be a touchdown or less. I hope the Chiefs come away with the victory. In the NFL, I've learned over the years, it's a lot of strange things can happen. And just because you think a team's on the ropes, it doesn't mean they are. And generally speaking, the more desperate team has a great chance of winning. And I think the Chiefs are the more desperate of the two teams, despite the fact that Tampa Bay's off to a slow start. I think the Chiefs have a great opportunity to stick in this game to the last quarter. I think it's going to be a close game.
Eric Berry's been struggling this year so far, coming back from his torn ACL. Do you think with the addition of Kendrick Lewis, who's going to be starting his first game this week, will help Eric Berry lighten his load and allow him to play better?
Well, you hope so. Eric, it sure seems like teams have picked on him a little bit and tried to isolate him and go after him one-on-one. It's interesting. You talk to people around the league, at least the people I've talked to, there were people last year who said losing Eric Berry just was a huge blow to the entire secondary. That Eric Berry was such a rock and such a consistent player that it affected everybody back there. But then I've talked to people this this year who said that Eric Berry's vulnerable in man-to-man coverage, and so they feel like he is not as big a difference maker as we like to think here in Kansas City. And these are from people who I respect, people in other teams' locker rooms I've gone in and interviewed this year, and they're saying, Eric's not the player he was, or we feel like we felt like we could attack him. Now they're not saying this on camera, but they're telling me this privately. People I know on other teams, that they felt like that was an area they could attack, and certainly we saw that. I think we saw that last week, and 2 weeks ago. Especially 2 weeks ago, I felt like they attacked Eric Berry when they could get him isolated. I think all of those guys on the back end of that defense, and this is not brain surgery, fellas, I'm not telling you anything you don't know,
Sure.
but they would all benefit by a better pass rush. And I don't think there's any question that if Houston and Hawley can continue to put some pressure on the quarterbacks, it will make the entire defense better. It'll make them all better because it makes it easier to cover when you don't have to cover for very long, and it makes it easier to cover and easier to get picks when the quarterback's having to move his feet and is under duress, and we have to hope the Chiefs' front seven can generate some pass rush. We have not seen that yet from the nose tackle position, really. And I'm hopeful that as the season goes on, we're going to see that position be a position of strength as opposed to a position of weakness or a neutral position.
Oh, absolutely, Neal. Can't agree with you more. And I'll tell you what, this has been Neal Jones. Thank you so much for joining us today, Neal. I'll tell you what, we missed you on the radio, and if you ever get back there, get us up. We'll get on the horn with Neal Jones, man. We'll absolutely do it.
Well, thanks for having me on, fellas. I appreciate it. And remember, you can watch all the pregame coverage on KCTV5 starting at 10 o'clock till 11, and then it goes right into the NFL and CBS, and then we'll have all your postgame coverage on Off the Bench with Michael Coleman Sunday night.
I will be watching, Neal, no doubt. And actually, one more quick question. Red River Shootout. Is this the most open-ended one ever? 50-50 right here.
Yeah, there have been a lot of years. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. You get those teams down there, and emotion is such a big part of that game that it's hard to tell what's going to happen. I don't have a good feeling. I'm wearing my crimson today, but I don't have a good feeling. I think Texas is pretty good. Yeah,
it'll maybe depend on which Landry Jones shows up, certainly, but we'll be watching, Neal, and we'll be checking it out. KCTV5's Neal Jones joining us right here on the Outsiders Podcast. We'll catch up with you next time, Neal. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.
Good day, guys.
And great stuff, as always, from our buddy Neal Jones there from KCTV5. We will certainly be watching pre- and post-game with him. He brings an interesting perspective, and gosh, really glad we could have him on today.
Yeah, he loves those sound bites like we got from Eric Winston earlier in this week. He doesn't necessarily agree with everything Eric said, but he'd rather have those than the robots like Romeo Crennel. Oh, man, we lost. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Everybody calm down. We'll be okay. We'll get back to work. So it's great for hearing those sound bites from Eric Winston, even though it may not have been what he wanted to hear.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, and I think he agreed with us in that he thinks it's kind of a toss-up game, but a game that he thinks the Chiefs can win. And that's going to be key going forward. We're going to see where this team is as we head into the bye week. Of course, after the Tampa game, you come right back here to the Outsiders Podcast, and we will be breaking that game down. In the meantime, be sure to hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/The Outsiders Podcast, and on Twitter, Chiefs Outsiders.
Also, check out our brand new website, theoutsiderspodcast.weebly.com.
We will catch you guys next time. Have a good weekend, and go Chiefs.